In the busy town of Nakuru, people knew Zuri everywhere. She was young, beautiful, and full of energy. On the streets, in the markets, and even at the small cafes, people would whisper, "That is Zuri, the Slay Queen of the Sun." She had a presence that could make heads turn, but it was not just her looks that made her famous. Zuri was a star on social media. Every morning she would wake up, put on her best clothes, style her hair, and spend hours filming videos. She shared everything: her makeup routines, her dresses, the meals she ate, and even her small walks in the town. People loved her for her style and confidence. Her followers sent her messages, gifts, and praises. They called her perfect, creative, and bold. At first, Zuri enjoyed it all. She laughed at funny comments, replied to fans, and even cried when people sent her emotional messages about how she inspired them. The attention made her feel important. But slowly something began to change. Her followers did not comment as much. Likes were fewer. Some fans even stopped following her. Zuri noticed it, and it hurt more than she expected. She had grown used to being admired. She had built her life around her social media fame. The thought of losing her followers made her anxious. She tried everything. She posted more videos, changed her style, and even tried new trends. But nothing worked. Her videos no longer went viral like before. At night, when the lights of her room dimmed and the cameras were off, Zuri felt empty. She sat on her bed and looked at the phone in her hand. She saw the number of followers slowly rising and falling, but it no longer gave her joy. She missed the excitement she used to feel, the rush of seeing her videos liked by thousands. Now it was just numbers on a screen. She felt lonely even though she had fans. She felt small in the crowd of people who only watched her online. One evening, while thinking about how to get her followers' attention back, Zuri had an idea. It was sudden, daring, and maybe even a little shocking. She thought, what if I show the world something big, something real? She wanted to give her followers a new story, something that would make them talk and share. She wanted her life to feel exciting again, not just for herself but for the thousands of people who watched her every day. Zuri picked up her phone and wrote a message. Her fingers shook as she typed, not because she was scared, but because she knew it would change everything. The words were simple, but they carried a storm of meaning. I want a baby, my next big story. She hesitated for a moment, looking at the words on the screen. Could she really post this? Would people understand? Would they laugh or judge her? She pressed send anyway. The post went live. Almost immediately, her phone began to buzz. Notifications kept coming one after another. Comments poured in from her followers. Some were excited, some were shocked, and some were angry. "Zuri, are you serious?" one person wrote. "This is crazy," another said. But many loved it. They commented with hearts, likes, and clapping emojis. People started sharing the post. Soon it spread beyond her followers. Local bloggers wrote about it. Other social media stars mentioned it. It felt like she had done something daring, something everyone wanted to watch. Zuri's heart raced. She felt alive again. The empty feeling that had haunted her for weeks began to fade. For the first time in a long while, she felt powerful. People were talking about her again, and she could see her follower count rising. She smiled at the phone screen and whispered to herself, "Yes, this is it. This is my story." The next morning, Zuri woke up to hundreds of messages. Her phone had dozens of missed calls and notifications from apps she did not even remember installing. People were tagging her, sharing her post, and asking questions. "How are you going to do it?" one follower asked. "Are you really going to have a baby?" another wrote. Zuri felt a mixture of pride and fear. She had attention again, but now it was bigger than she had imagined. It was not just likes anymore. People were waiting to see what she would do next. Everywhere she went, people talked about her post. At the market, sellers whispered, "Did you see what Zuri said online?" On the streets, children waved at her and asked, "Are you going to have a baby?" Even her friends were curious. Some congratulated her, some were worried, and some laughed. Zuri knew she had made a decision that could change her life forever. As days passed, the excitement grew. Her story was trending. People were making videos, sharing opinions, and even debating if she was serious or just looking for attention. Zuri loved watching it all. It felt like the world was watching her life as it happened. The fame, the attention, and the excitement filled the empty space she had felt for so long. For the first time in weeks, she felt alive and important again. But late at night, when the lights went out and she was alone, Zuri thought quietly to herself. She wondered if her plan was only about fame or if she really wanted to have a baby. She wondered if she could handle what she had started. She knew one thing for sure: this post had changed everything. People were watching, talking, and waiting for her next move. Zuri smiled softly, feeling both nervous and excited. The post had gone viral and the town of Nakuru was buzzing with her name. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone had a story about Zuri, the slay queen who wanted a baby for her next big story. For Zuri, the world had opened up in a way it never had before. She felt powerful, alive, and full of possibilities. And in her heart, she knew that her life had just entered a new chapter, one that would not be ordinary, quiet, or easy. It would be a story that people would remember. Zuri could hardly believe how fast her plan was working. The post about wanting a baby had gone viral, and her followers were more active than ever. Everyone was talking about her, sharing her story, and waiting for her next move. In the middle of all this excitement, Zuri met Lebo, a quiet and humble mechanic from her town. Lebo was not famous and he did not have social media followers, but he had a kind heart and a gentle smile that caught Zuri's attention. He admired her openly, telling her how beautiful she looked and how confident she appeared in everything she did. To Zuri, he seemed like the perfect partner, someone she could use for her next big chapter. She started spending time with Lebo. At first it was casual. They met in small cafes, walked through the town streets and laughed at small jokes. Zuri's camera was always nearby, recording snippets of their time together. She smiled for the camera, whispered to the phone, and made every ordinary moment look extraordinary. To her followers it was perfect. They watched Zuri and Lebo as if they were a fairy tale couple. Every hug, every smile, every glance became content. Zuri made sure it looked real even if inside it was all carefully planned. As weeks passed, Zuri's followers began to grow again. Her engagement skyrocketed. People commented on her love story, shared it with friends, and even started guessing when she would have a baby. Zuri loved it. She felt powerful. She had not only returned to fame but had created something bigger than before. Her story was no longer just about fashion or luxury, it was personal, emotional, and real, at least on the surface. She had captured the attention of thousands of people, and each post, video, and photo made her feel like she was winning. Then one day Zuri discovered she was pregnant. She felt a mix of excitement and fear. This was exactly what she wanted. A new chapter, a new story, but now it was real. The baby inside her would be the center of attention for her followers. She could already imagine the posts: first baby bump photo, baby shopping haul, preparing the nursery. The ideas made her heart race with happiness. Every moment could be turned into content, every milestone could bring her more views, more likes, and more attention. Zuri started documenting everything. She filmed herself in the mornings talking to her followers about how she felt, showing the clothes she wore, the meals she ate, and the little preparations she was making for the baby. Every doctor visit, every tiny movement of the baby, and even her cravings became content. Her followers cheered for her, leaving comments filled with hearts, encouragement, and excitement. Zuri felt she had everything under control. She had her story, her followers, and a perfect image. But as Zuri focused more on content, Lebo began to notice something. He loved Zuri, or at least he thought he did. He enjoyed the quiet moments when they could sit together and talk, away from cameras and social media. But more often, Zuri was looking at her phone, adjusting the lighting, or thinking about how to make the moment look good online. The genuine connection he wanted was slipping away. He noticed that her smiles were sometimes for the camera and not for him. The warmth he hoped for in their relationship felt distant, replaced by the pursuit of attention. Lebo tried to talk to her. One afternoon, while Zuri was filming a small video of them shopping for the baby, he said softly, "Zuri, I feel like you are not really here with me. You are always thinking about the camera." Zuri laughed lightly, waving her hand. "Lebo, don't worry. This is how it has to be. People want to see our story. They want to share it. I'm doing this for us, for the baby, and for everyone who loves me." Lebo frowned but kept quiet. He wanted to believe her, but he felt a growing distance. As the weeks passed, Lebo's unease grew. He loved seeing Zuri happy, but he wanted her to be present, not just for social media but for their life together. He noticed that she carefully staged every moment, that her affection often felt directed at the camera, and that her plans revolved around followers, likes, and shares. Lebo had imagined a simple life, where they could laugh, cry, and celebrate the small moments together. But Zuri's life had become a constant performance. Despite this, Zuri did not slow down. She continued posting every day. Her pregnancy became a sensation online. People commented on her baby bump, asked questions about the future, and offered advice. Zuri read every comment, replied to some, and laughed at the attention. She felt alive again, alive in a way that she had not felt for a long time. The emptiness she had experienced before seemed gone, replaced by the rush of being watched, admired, and celebrated. But the more Zuri focused on content, the more Lebo withdrew. He still cared for her, but he felt used and unseen. He would smile and nod when she filmed, but inside he began to question whether Zuri's love for him was real or just another story for her followers. The love he had imagined for them, quiet, warm and steady, was being replaced by scripts, poses and staged moments. Lebo could not deny the truth any longer. He realized that Zuri's heart was more with the camera than with him, and this truth hurt him deeply. One evening after a long day of filming, Lebo sat quietly and said, "Zuri, I cannot do this anymore. I thought we were building something real, but I feel like I am just part of your story. I cannot be a character in someone else's show." Zuri froze. For a moment she did not respond. The camera was off now, but the words hung in the air. She realized that in her pursuit of attention, she had forgotten the person standing beside her, the man who had cared for her, and the quiet love that had once existed. Lebo left that night. He did not shout, he did not argue, he just walked away. Zuri watched him go, feeling a pang of guilt that she had not expected. For the first time she felt the emptiness creeping back. Her followers were still there, still cheering, still commenting, but the real connection, the real warmth of love had gone. She was alone in the quiet of her room, surrounded by cameras, lights, and applause from strangers who did not know her. As the days passed, Zuri continued posting, but the excitement was different now. The thrill of attention was still there, but a shadow had entered her life. She was carrying a child, a real life that depended on her, and she began to wonder if she had focused too much on her followers and too little on what mattered. She looked at her growing belly and thought of the life inside her. For the first time, she felt a responsibility that no number of likes could fulfill. She realized that this child was not a story, not content, not a post to go viral. This was real, and it deserved more than staged videos. Zuri began to slow down her filming, even though it went against the advice of her followers and the trends she had created. She wanted to be present, to feel the tiny movements, and to connect with the child growing inside her. She learned that life was not a story to be told online. It was something to be felt, experienced, and loved. Though Lebo had left, she understood that her choices were hers alone, and she needed to find the balance between attention and responsibility. By the end of her second trimester, Zuri had changed. She still shared moments online, but her heart was no longer focused on fame. She smiled when she felt the baby move, laughed when she bought tiny clothes, and even cried sometimes, not for attention but for the reality of life. She realized that love and connection were far more important than likes and shares. And though Lebo had gone, she knew that this journey, difficult, real, and unfiltered, was her most important story yet. When the day finally came, Zuri held her baby for the first time. She looked down at the tiny life in her arms and felt a mixture of awe and fear. The child's skin was soft, its small hands curled into fists, and its eyes closed as it slept. For a moment, Zuri forgot about social media, the followers, and the cameras. This little human depended entirely on her. But the moment of calm was short-lived. Soon, the baby began to cry, a loud and piercing wail that seemed to shake the walls of her small room. The first night was the hardest. Zuri tried everything, rocking the baby, feeding it, singing lullabies, but the crying never seemed to stop. Her arms ached, her eyes were heavy, and her heart felt fragile. She had imagined motherhood as a beautiful, peaceful journey, full of smiles, photos, and sweet videos. But reality was different. The sleepless nights, the endless cries, and the constant attention the baby needed were overwhelming. She realized that life was not a staged video. There were no pauses, no retakes, and no filters to make the pain disappear. For days, Zuri struggled. She could not sleep for more than a few hours at a time. She skipped meals, forgot to drink water, and felt her energy drain away. Her small room, which once looked perfect for filming, now felt like a cage. The baby cried constantly, sometimes for hunger, sometimes for discomfort, sometimes for no reason she could understand. The tiny cries filled the space around her, echoing in her ears, and she began to feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. She wanted to post something online to keep her followers engaged, but every time she looked at her phone, she felt a sharp pang of guilt. How could she turn this tiny life into content when it needed love, care, and attention? She tried a few photos, but they felt empty. The smiles she forced for the camera felt wrong. She realized that this child was not a story to entertain the world, it was real, fragile, and needed her fully. Meanwhile, her followers began to vanish. The excitement that had surrounded her pregnancy faded. People commented less, shared her posts less, and slowly stopped checking her updates. Zuri saw the numbers drop, but she no longer cared as much. Fame and likes had once been her life, But now, the crying, the sleepless nights, and the constant care had replaced them. She began to understand that life was more important than attention. Lebo had already left, and his absence made the nights even lonelier. He had walked away quietly, leaving Zuri to face the reality she had long avoided. She thought about him often, about his kind smile and the way he had tried to love her despite everything. Now she had no one to talk to about her fears and struggles. Her friends were busy, her followers were gone, and the only voice in the room was the baby's cry. She felt a deep loneliness that went beyond simple sadness. It was a realization that life was not easy, that love required sacrifice, and that her choices had consequences she could no longer avoid. Zuri learned quickly that motherhood was not glamorous. She had to wake in the middle of the night, feed the baby, change diapers and soothe it back to sleep. Each day brought new challenges: fevers, crying that would not stop, and worries about whether she was doing things right. She felt proud sometimes when she comforted her baby successfully, but the pride was always mixed with exhaustion and fear. Social media could not capture these feelings. There were no filters to make her eyes look bright when she had not slept, no app to show the weight of her responsibility. Despite the hardships, Zuri began to grow in ways she had not expected. She started learning patience, a deep kind of patience that no fame could teach. She learned to listen, to understand the baby's needs, and to respond even when she felt tired or afraid. Every smile from the baby, every tiny milestone, made her heart swell. She realized that love was not about attention or likes, it was about presence, care, and sacrifice. She also began to reflect on her past choices. She remembered how she had used Lebo in her pursuit of content. She felt regret and guilt for putting attention before love, for thinking of the baby as a story instead of a life. These thoughts were painful, but they helped her grow. Zuri started to see that being responsible, honest, and caring was more important than being famous or admired. She knew she had to change, not for her followers but for her child. As weeks turned into months, Zuri found a rhythm. She still struggled, but she became stronger. She learned to care for the baby without thinking about how it would look online. She learned to find joy in small moments, when the baby smiled, when it slept peacefully, or when it reached small milestones. These moments were not for anyone else to see, they were hers, private and precious. She realized that real happiness did not come from followers or fame, but from love, care, and connection. One quiet evening, Zuri sat in the rocking chair, holding her baby close. The child had finally fallen asleep and the room was still. She looked at the tiny face, the little fingers, and the soft breathing, and she felt a deep sense of responsibility. She whispered softly, "I will do my best. I will be here for you. You are not a story, you are my life." In that moment, she understood something she had never known before. The world of social media, likes, and fame was empty compared to the life she held in her arms. Though the journey was difficult, Zuri began to accept her reality. She was no longer just a slay queen chasing attention. She was a mother, responsible for a tiny human who depended on her every moment. The cries, the sleepless nights, and the exhaustion were all part of life now, real life, not staged for viewers. She learned humility, patience, and love in ways she had never imagined. Lebo's absence still hurt, but Zuri no longer focused on what she had lost. Instead, she focused on what she had: a child who needed her, a life to nurture, and a chance to grow into someone better. She realized that mistakes and selfish choices could teach lessons, and that it was never too late to change. She decided to face each day fully, to care for her baby, and to leave behind the obsession with fame that had once controlled her. By the time the baby was a few months old, Zuri had changed completely. Her world was smaller, quieter, and more focused. She no longer posted constantly online. Her followers had mostly disappeared, but that no longer mattered. She had learned that attention fades, but love and care endure. Each smile from her baby, each moment of connection, reminded her that real life was more important than any post or video. Zuri's pride had been broken by sleepless nights, endless crying, and loneliness, but in that brokenness she had grown. She had learned that fame was fleeting, that social media could not replace real love, and that responsibility was the greatest teacher. Her baby's cry, once overwhelming, now felt like a reminder of purpose, a sound that kept her grounded, focused, and alive. Though the room was small, and though she was often tired and alone, Zuri knew that her life had changed forever. She had entered a new chapter, one filled with real challenges, real love, and real growth. The world outside no longer mattered. What mattered was the little life in her arms, and the lessons she was learning about what truly matters in life. One quiet morning, Zuri woke up and looked at herself in the mirror. Her face was pale, her eyes were tired, and her hair was messy from another sleepless night. The camera sat on the table nearby, but this time she did not feel the need to hide behind filters, lights, or makeup. For the first time in a long time she wanted to be real, not for followers, not for likes, but for herself. She picked up her phone and decided to go live. When she started the live video, she did not smile or pose. She wore simple clothes, no designer dress, no bright lipstick. Her eyes were red from crying and her voice shook at first. She held her baby in her arms, the little one peacefully sleeping, and began to speak softly, almost as if she were talking to herself. "I turned my child into content when he should have been my joy," she said. The words came slowly, but each one carried the weight of truth. She spoke of her mistakes, her obsession with fame, and how she had lost sight of what was important. At first the comments came slowly. People were confused. They were used to seeing Zuri as the glamorous slay queen of the sun, always smiling, always stylish, always perfect. Now they saw a tired mother, raw and vulnerable, speaking honestly about her life. Some followers laughed at first, thinking she was joking, but soon messages of support poured in. People wrote, "Thank you for being real, this is brave of you, and we understand what you went through." Slowly, more people joined the live video, watching quietly, listening to her story with attention and respect. Zuri continued to speak, her voice growing stronger. She told the truth about her journey, how she had used Lebo, how she had treated her pregnancy as content, and how the emptiness of fame had blinded her to real love. She admitted that she had thought followers, likes, and attention were more important than her child's needs, and that she now understood her mistakes. "I want to be a better mother," she said, holding the baby closer. "I want my child to grow in love, not in a story for the world." People listened, captivated not by beauty or glamour but by honesty. They felt her pain, her regret, and her desire to change. Mothers wrote messages of encouragement, sharing their own struggles. Some young women admitted that they had chased fame and attention at the expense of real life. Fathers, friends, and even strangers reached out with kind words. In that moment, Zuri realized that truth had more power than any filter, any camera, or any post she had ever shared. After the live video ended, Zuri felt a calm she had not known in years. She set the phone down and looked at her baby, smiling for the first time in a long while. The rush of social media, the obsession with followers, and the need to perform vanished. She was present, fully present, with the tiny life in her arms. She understood that her journey had been hard, but it had taught her something invaluable. Real life was not a show and love could not be staged. Over the next few weeks, Zuri began to act on what she had realized. She reached out to other young mothers in her community, offering advice, support, and a listening ear. She visited homes, shared experiences, and helped women understand that their lives, their struggles, and their children were real and precious, not content for social media. She taught them to find joy in small moments, to care for their children with love, and to value truth over attention. Zuri also started to create small classes for young mothers. She taught them basic skills for raising children, but she also spoke about emotional care, honesty, and responsibility. She explained how social media could distract them from what truly mattered, and how easy it was to forget that children were real people, not props for attention. Her sessions were simple but powerful, and many young mothers came regularly to listen to her words and learn from her experience. Slowly, the community began to notice a change. Mothers became more confident, more patient, and more aware of the responsibilities they carried. They no longer worried about showing everything online. Instead, they focused on building real lives, nurturing their children, and finding joy in small victories. Zuri's example inspired them. They saw that someone who had once chased fame could change, learn, and help others. It gave them hope that they too could make better choices. Zuri also reflected on her own growth. She understood that her mistakes had taught her valuable lessons, that life was fragile, that children needed love more than attention, and that fame was meaningless without real connections. She learned to forgive herself for the past, to accept that she had been young, naive, and eager for recognition. Most importantly, she learned that change was possible, and that it was never too late to act with love, honesty, and care. Her baby, now a few months old, became the center of her life, not for content but for genuine love. Zuri watched as the little one learned to smile, grab her fingers, and explore the small world around them. Every laugh, every tiny milestone, filled her heart in ways no likes or comments ever could. She no longer needed social media to feel important or alive. The warmth of motherhood, the responsibility she carried, and the love she gave and received became her true happiness. Through her work with the community and her care for her child, Zuri discovered a new purpose. She wanted to show young mothers that life was not a performance, that children were not objects for attention, and that real love required time, patience, and honesty. She wanted to help others avoid the mistakes she had made, to find fulfillment in reality rather than in staged stories. As the days passed, Zuri's life became simpler, quieter, and more meaningful. She still occasionally used social media, but now only to share useful advice or to connect with other mothers. The obsession with fame, followers, and staged content faded completely. She had found a balance and she felt at peace. Her baby grew healthy and happy, surrounded by genuine love and care. Zuri often thought about the day she went live and admitted her mistakes. That day had been the turning point, the moment when she realized the truth. Life was real, love was real, and children were not for attention but for nurturing. From that moment on, she lived fully, loved deeply, and taught others to do the same. The lesson she shared with her community spread slowly but surely. Honesty, love, and presence mattered more than any show or performance. Through it all, Zuri had learned something important about herself. She was not just a slay queen chasing fame. She was a mother, a teacher, and a guide. She had grown stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. She understood the power of truth and the responsibility of care. She no longer needed approval from strangers. She had found joy, purpose, and fulfillment in reality. And so, Zuri's life changed completely. Her story was no longer about viral posts or glamorous videos. It was about real struggles, real love, and real growth. She had turned her mistakes into lessons, her pain into guidance, and her child into a source of genuine joy. Zuri's journey showed that it was never too late to change, and that truth and love were far more powerful than attention or fame. Years passed and Zuri's life had changed completely. The little baby she had once held in her arms had grown into a curious, lively boy named Tendo. He had bright eyes, a warm smile, and a gentle heart. Watching him grow gave Zuri more joy than any follower count or viral video ever had. She often held him close at night, listening to his quiet breathing, and whispered softly, "You are my real story, Tendo. You are everything I ever needed." These words came from deep within her, carrying the love, regret, and lessons of the years she had lived. Zuri had become a voice of honesty online, but it was different from before. She no longer chased fame or attention. Her posts were thoughtful, simple, and full of lessons she had learned the hard way. She shared stories about motherhood, about responsibility, and about the mistakes that had taught her so much. People listened to her because she spoke the truth, not because of beauty, style, or luxury. Young women, especially, came to see her as someone they could trust, someone who had made mistakes but had grown wiser and stronger. She often thought back to her days as the slay queen of the sun, when every smile, every outfit, and every post had been carefully staged for followers. She remembered the excitement of going viral, the rush of seeing likes and comments, and the way the world seemed to revolve around her online life. At that time, she had believed that attention and approval were everything. She had thought that being admired made life meaningful. But now she understood the truth. Fame fades, followers leave, and beauty is temporary. What lasts is love, care, honesty, and the bonds we build with real people. Zuri spent her days raising Tendo, teaching him about life, kindness, and truth. She showed him how to care for others, how to speak honestly, and how to value what really matters. She shared her own story with him in small ways, explaining how she had once put attention above love, and how she had learned to change. Tendo listened carefully, sometimes asking questions, sometimes just sitting quietly and absorbing her words. Zuri knew that the lessons she had learned would shape him into a kind and responsible young man. In the community of Nakuru, Zuri's reputation had transformed. People no longer remembered her as the flashy slay queen, chasing followers and likes. They remembered her as a wise woman who had faced her mistakes, learned from them, and dedicated her life to helping others. Young mothers sought her advice, neighbors came to her for guidance, and even strangers admired the change she had made. Zuri had become a symbol of growth, responsibility, and true wisdom. Her mornings were now filled with simple routines. She would wake up early, make breakfast for Tendo, and spend time with him before school. She helped him with small tasks, taught him little lessons about honesty, and encouraged him to explore his interests. In the afternoons, she visited other young mothers, sharing tips about raising children, managing responsibilities, and finding joy in small moments. She had learned that community mattered more than recognition, and she devoted herself to being a source of support and love. Zuri's past life sometimes tried to reach back. Social media occasionally reminded her of old trends, of posts that had once gone viral, or of followers who had disappeared. But these things no longer affected her. She had found peace beyond fame. She no longer needed validation from strangers, because she had discovered the satisfaction of real achievement, raising a child with love, supporting her community, and living honestly. Each day brought small victories, small moments of joy, and small lessons that no follower could give her. She also reflected on the time she had spent chasing attention. She remembered the nights she had cried alone, the exhaustion of pretending for the camera, and the loneliness after Lebo had left. Those moments had been painful, but they had taught her lessons she could never forget. She learned that life is fragile, that people are not objects to be used for attention, and that love must always come first. The child in her arms, the boy named Tendo, was living proof of what truly mattered. As Tendo grew older, Zuri began to share her story more openly with the world. She posted small videos about honesty, about mistakes, and about the importance of presence. She encouraged young women to focus on real life, to value love and care over likes and followers. She explained how easy it was to get lost in the chase for attention, and how important it was to put family, responsibility, and integrity first. Her words reached thousands, and many people wrote back to say that her honesty had changed their lives. Zuri also spent time helping children and families outside her home. She organized small groups where mothers could meet, share experiences, and learn from one another. She visited schools to speak to teenagers about responsibility and choices. She helped families in need with small acts of kindness, teaching them that generosity and care were far more important than fame or wealth. Through all of this, she became a respected and loved figure in Nakuru. Every evening when the sun set over the town, Zuri would sit with Tendo, telling him stories about their life, their family, and the lessons they had learned. She would explain how mistakes could become guidance, how challenges could make people stronger, and how love was the most important gift anyone could give or receive. Tendo listened with wide eyes, learning from his mother not just words, but the example of her life. Zuri's transformation inspired others. Young women who once sought fame and attention began to rethink their choices. They saw that life was richer when it was lived with honesty, care, and purpose. Mothers who struggled in silence found hope in Zuri's story. Neighbors and friends respected her, not for her past glamour, but for her present wisdom. Zuri had become a living example that people could change, grow, and create a meaningful life even after mistakes. Despite all the years that had passed, Zuri never forgot the lessons she had learned. She remembered the emptiness of chasing likes, the loneliness of staged happiness, and the pain of losing someone she loved. Those memories were bittersweet, but they strengthened her commitment to living honestly. She often told Tendo, "Life is not about being seen or admired. It is about love, care, and truth. You must always remember that." Zuri also realized that happiness did not come from followers or fame. It came from small, real moments. A smile from Tendo, a child learning something new, a mother finding hope in her advice. She cherished these moments more than any number of likes, shares, or views. She had found a life filled with meaning, and every day brought reminders that truth and love were stronger than attention or recognition. Her story became well known in Nakuru. People spoke about Zuri as someone who had learned from her past, faced her mistakes, and grown into a wise and caring woman. She had turned a life once focused on fame into a life of meaning, guidance, and love. Her transformation reminded everyone that it was possible to change, to learn, and to live a better life.